Diving back into my custom project that I've been wanting to do for quite some time now, but my truck has been in storage. As previously discussed in another one of my videos, I have a brand new steering wheel. Okay. Got a brand new steering wheel. You can get kind of a sneak peek of what's going on in there. Some suede. The top half and bottom half are leather wrapped. It's got grips on it. And this thing is absolutely gorgeous. But it feels like it's missing something. What do you think, guys? You think I should modify a brand new part before we install it? I feel like it's missing something. Let's see if we can't figure out how to add something to that. And for that, we need to dig over here in this box of my other steering wheel and other parts. So I attempted to have welded some brackets on this, and the welds just took chunks of metal clean out of the steering wheel. So whatever this is made out of, maybe a magnesium, maybe some sort of alloy, found out we can't weld to that, so that's kind of a bummer. So what we're after, steering wheel switches, part of it. There's my porta throttle body. That's also going to get installed eventually, hopefully pretty soon. Black Harley airbag to go on the new black steering wheel. And somewhere in here, there we go. That's what we're after. And I do still need to do my cruise control. I've had this kit for like almost a year and a half now, and I haven't done anything with that. So that's kind of a bummer. But so this is what we got working with. I had these little brackets on the back of it. As you can see, this one is the one that we attempted to weld on, and the weld just took chunks of metal clean off with it. So I have to do a little bit of cleanup on this guy before we actually install them, but they're going to get installed. Something like that. Any guesses of what we're doing here? This is the one that gives it away, but it's covered up. So these are going to get added on, and we'll have some more fun with this truck. So what I need to do is get this thing where it's seated where we're happy, and then we're going to epoxy this bracket in place. That way it's stationary and not moving around, and then our additions can stay where they're supposed to. But before I start doing epoxy on the steering wheel, I need to make sure that my brand new steering wheel is nice and protected. I'm going to cover this whole thing in painter's tape, and that way we don't end up with any stray epoxy somewhere on the leather or Alcantara that we don't want. Alright, I got the steering wheel completely masked off, and I got my attempted welded bracket one from that one. I got it all cleaned up, and it's ready to be glued down again. So we're going to jump into getting some epoxy mixed up and installed. I'd like to start with kind of the high spots up here that are easier to get to, and then I'll probably, take the switches back out and then do a bunch more from underneath. At least that's my game plan. We'll see how that actually works out once we get into it. Now I'm remembering that I had originally intended to put some mounting screws in that guy before I did this. So hopefully we didn't jump the gun getting too excited building this thing. Hopefully we didn't get too far along ahead of ourselves. Well, I walked away for about 30 minutes and the glue had started running, or the epoxy started running sideways and down, and the brackets were sagging. So I just bit the bullet, made a big mess, and took it apart and actually mounted my screws the way I wanted to, drilled them, and then put my self-tapping screws in there. And that way the brackets are held at the right angle because they're actually attached to the switch now. And we'll let this sit up for a little while and see how this does. But you know, got glue all over my hands now, so that's fun, but all in the name of go fast race car stuff. So anyways, we'll update you here in a little bit when we get back into it. Alright, so I got the steering wheel standing vertically, and I made some little retaining walls out of masking tape there and there, so I can, as the glue wants to run out, it can only go one direction. So we're gonna let that sit up for another probably 12 or 24 hours and visit this another day in the week, and we'll do the other side in the same way, and then we can get into doing more of the install. It'll make a little more sense once we get this finished up. So I ended up getting both sides glued up. I need to pull the tape and do some test fitting with the switches. I may need to do a little bit of small amount of sanding or grinding or whatever to get the switch to fit back in there, but that came out really nicely. I'm actually really happy with how that came out. So we're gonna do a little bit of work on those, and then I can start explaining how this is going to get more complicated very quickly. It's never easy with Patman Garage, so we'll get into that here in just a second. Okie dokie. So I've got my switches fitting in nice and snugly, even without the mounting screws, so that's good. I'm really happy with the way that's turning out. Alright, so this is how it's going to start getting more complicated. So the switch placements is where I want them to be for obvious reasons. Now the downfall is the plastic cover that goes on the back of the steering wheel has mounting screws that go into the steering wheel to hold this piece on here. Okay, well that's not end of the world. We can make little mounting tabs or figure out how to sandwich that in here. We're gonna have to cut a whole bunch of plastic off to make room anyways, so not that big of a deal, right? We can handle that. The problem is the purpose of not only those mounting screws here, but this cover that goes on the outside here is actually a dual purpose hole, and what goes in sideways this direction is what mounts the airbag to the steering wheel. So if I pop one of these switches back out of here, this hole is where my airbag mounts to, and this one is where the cover mounts to. So this is going to block access, essentially block access to both my airbag mounting hole and the cover. Like I said, cover's not end of the world, not that big of a deal. We'll figure that out, but we need to be able to mount the airbag up. That's kind of an important thing to have. All right, so I traced out what I believe is going to be my area of concern or area of fitment issues. So we're going to cut out that on both sides, and then we'll get into test fitting this again and then see what it would look like from there. All right, got one side window cut out. Still need to cut out the other side. Just kind of wanted you to see the back side of what all had to come out. A lot of little plastic tabs. We'll get this other side cut out and do some more test fitting. All right, did lots and lots and lots of cutting, and I think I finally got it fitting where I'm fairly happy with it. It's not 100% perfect, but it'll at least get us there for the night. All right, I got the steering wheel back at the house, and I posted a little teaser shot of this guy on my Instagram. So that's the answer. What that is? That's the back trim of the steering wheel notched out. So if you haven't followed me on Instagram, I don't post a ton of stuff on there, but I do try to post stuff every now and then, and posted this quick teaser. And now to the bad news. So I haven't given up on the project by any means, but it does appear that it's going to get more complicated. So let me show you what I got going on here. All right, so I got some bolts. This one kind of fell out, but I got the bolts in the steering wheel or where the airbag's going to go. The downside is, the short answer is I don't have access to that bolt the way I wanted it to. So because this hole is just significantly higher than where the bolt sits, might have even be able to show you the backwards of that. Yeah, so you can see the square opening hole there, and you can see where the bolt is, and they're just in two different areas. So what that means for us is, I think that the assembly process just got even more complicated. I think what's going to have to happen is steering wheel is going to have to go on the truck, then bolt in the airbag, then wiggle the switches in place, which may mean I have to turn the steering wheel one way or the other to get above or below the column, get the switches installed, switches bolted down, and then the back cover goes on. Well, that gets more complicated because the back cover is a circle, and the back cover has to be on at the time of install. So what I'm hoping my next option is take off the steering column upper and lower covers, take those off, and then maybe this will slide deeper onto the column, and then I can build that the way I just talked about. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed and hope that this works. If not, I just did this whole giant process for absolutely nothing. So that's the plan now, is we're going to jump in the truck and pull the original steering wheel off and see if we can't make this work the way I want it to work. Let's hope. And there's our factory steering wheel, nice and gray and boring. And we're gonna see if we can't upgrade this and make this a lot nicer. All right, jumping into removing this guy. So I already got my little covers popped off here, so we'll get my bolt in there. I want to say it's an 8mm. It's been forever since I pulled that off, so I'm gonna figure out what size that is, and then we'll work on pulling the column cover off, and then we'll see what we look like. All right, steering wheel is removed, and we'll pop the covers off of here, and it looks like we might be in luck. Obviously, it's going to be utterly ridiculous if I ever have to service this, because, well, this is not going to be fun at all. Oh, why do I have to do dumb shit to be cool? I want to be custom, but God, this is going to suck. All right, so steering wheel is still about a 1/2 inch out because it's not pressed onto the column yet. And I've slid my column cover back basically as much as I can. I run into the base of the ignition on this side a little bit, and very quickly run into the high beam multifunction switch on this side. So doesn't leave me a whole lot of room to work. I'm gonna try to get you a top-down look there. So with the steering wheel cover back, I would have to lean, I'd have to lean the switch out. And now my screw fell out, but granted, I'm still have another 1/2 inch of play that I haven't accounted for. Lost that guy. Still have about a 1/2 inch of play, but I would need to come in here and tighten up these bolts and then slide my switches in from the back, and then also put in my screws that hold the switches in on the back of that. Then finally, once all that is done, I can bring my cover back forward and figure out how to mount that. So I was going to originally glue that. Now I'm thinking that may be more difficult just based off of how this is going to have to install. I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm discouraged, but this sure is frustrating sometimes to do something like this. So engineering something that wasn't designed to fit like that, but I'm going to keep plugging away at it and see what I can come up with. Anyways, with the use of cardboard template here, I made this nifty little bracket. I flattened it out so I could measure it out, but basically that was the shape we were going for, something like that. And this is what we ended up with, at least one of them. If I can get it out of here. Alright, so this is the bracket we were shaping for, and this is what we ended up with. And again, this may not look like much, but this is about maybe 30 minutes worth of work to build that, cut that, bend it in the right shape. I do still need to make a second one, but the purpose of this guy is going to be, scratching my hood, the purpose of this guy is supposed to be sitting in here like that, and that'll give me something to attach my cover to as I continue to run out of space in this. And the idea is, with, see if I can do this one-handed, with the cover removed, the shape of that, with the cover removed, the shape of that's not going to interfere with my installation of my paddle, because there's an air gap there. Otherwise, my original plan was just put a big giant blob of epoxy there, and then kind of build a little bracket that comes off of it, but that doesn't work because the paddle needs to go in and out of that space. Again, while the steering wheel's half mocked in place, or actually, steering wheel's actually installed and we're building it in the truck, so had to overcomplicate this and build a nice little bracket to do the job. And also going to need a bracket on this side. So I'm going to get to work on building one of those. And then once I get both the brackets built, then I'll just have I'll show you on this guy. This is going to sit in here like that. So this guy's going to sit basically like that and allow me to put a self-tapping screw from the back side into that piece of aluminum there. So I'll have a little tiny self-tapping screw out here, which won't be very visible because we're going to be oohing and awing over the paddle shifters. So I need one for this side over here, and we'll build that real quick and then jump back into installation. And now I have these cute little twins. So, ooh, almost dropped one. So what I'm going to do next is drill the hole in this guy and in the cover, and then I'll go ahead and get the screws in place, and then if we need to make any last minute tweaks with the brackets, we can, and then we'll flip this dude over and we'll epoxy this flat side here on the bottom or the front side of the steering wheel, and then we should be able to, once the epoxy is cured, we can take the screw back out and pull the cover off. All right, got the brackets installed, at least mocked up outside the steering wheel, because it's self-tappers. I wanted to make sure they actually went in the first time correctly, and yeah, just wanted to give you all a closer view of what that looks like off the steering wheel. And then once we go back on the steering wheel, those feet will be on the other side of my epoxy bracket. So I've got a little bit of rearranging to do to make that happen, but I know once they're actually all installed, you just start running out of room to actually show you all what I'm doing. So I figured it was a good opportunity to, since I was mocking it up anyways, to give you a actual look at what's going on. So I'll take it back apart, put it back together, or fully install it, and then we'll glue it, and then we'll be done for the night. Okie dokie. I got my brackets flipped around to the correct side, and honestly, it's fairly snug already. A little bit of adjustment, a little bit of movement there, but that should firm up once we get the bracket glued on this side. So the fun part's going to be getting glue down inside of that hole and not making a giant mess on both sides, and getting that, where it's happy. So I got my work cut out for me just to get glue in there, but this should be the last major step here, and then we should be ready to start. And then we should be ready to start actually installing this thing.